Order me to buy your kids expensive gifts for Christmas? Okay then, buy you a rusty bathtub. So my brothers and sisters basically ordered me and my wife to buy their children, our nieces and nephews, expensive gifts for Christmas because, according to them, we were well off. We're not really, we're just financially responsible. But since they asked for it, and it's already on the budget, we decided to be vindictive this year. So for the most amazing Christmas, our nieces and nephews will each get 5 tubs of Play-Doh, which sticks to everything. 5 kgs of multicolored kinetic sand, which gets everywhere. 5 tubs of gooey slime, see all above. 5 packs of easy fill water balloons. Age-appropriate Nerf gun and safety glass. This should be a fun Christmas. Update 1. Well, this blew up. Oh man, I should have asked first before I ordered the stuff. You guys have such diabolical ideas. I think this could be the start of a new Christmas tradition, depending if my siblings remain naughty or nice. For those suggesting to Legos, we already gave small boxes of them a few months ago as giveaways for our son's birthday, these should complement them nicely. For those suggesting a drum set or noise makers, I left them out intentionally. It would be a bad idea since my sisters work nights at the hospital. I don't want them to lose sleep during the day and affect their jobs at night when lives are at stake. Sleep is important, you don't mess with it. For those saying that these are not at all expensive, exactly. You demand someone expensive gifts, you get cheap and annoying ones instead. But will the children care? No, they'll think it's the best Christmas ever. My wife told me to buy us a couple of those automatic Nerf guns from the money we saved from the gifts, you know, for protection. Also, we will not be including the water balloons as I was reminded that I do not want a repeat of the great impromptu water balloon fight of 2018, which I may or may not write about, but it would fit snugly in r/entitled siblings. Also, no glitter, it's too much. New Army Captain tries to end her career, by user Thedomidoro. The background. I used to be an armorer in the US Army. I was the person in charge of securing and maintaining all the weapons. I was stationed overseas at a base that only had one arms room, and I was the guy who ran it, so instead of just being responsible for the weapons in my unit, I was responsible for all the weapons in the entire post. On paper, that's a job that's supposed to be done by an E6 with a 2-person support staff. In reality, the position was chronically short-staffed. It was just me, as an E4, doing the job of 3 people. Because the position was critical to the operations of a bunch of different units, including things like PSYOPs and Special Forces where everything about them is classified by default, and joint operations with the Navy and Air Force, and a few foreign militaries who were working with the US, I had to get a security clearance that was higher than everyone else in my own unit. As far as I knew, there were only 4 other people on the post with clearance high enough to do what I did, and they were all officers. This led to some amusing situations where I was accidentally called for security briefings that were way above my pay grade. That sucked because I was on call all the time, and had to go to work anytime anyone needed a weapon. Being on call was supposed to be a duty rotation, but I was the only one who could do it. So I slept in the arms room a lot. I wanted to make sure I had as little to do as possible, so I got very good at my job. How good? During an army-wide review of the entire supply chain, my post was found to be the best-run arms room in the entire army. I won a medal and everything. Then we had a change in command, and the new captain hated that I didn't have to go on training exercises because I wasn't allowed to be more than 30 minutes away from the arms room, ever. The compliance. The new captain was absolutely determined to take me on a training mission. She'd somehow gotten it into her head that I was a slacker, which I absolutely was, but only because I was efficient and pissed off that I never got to leave the base. So she drew up a bunch of paperwork to sign the arms room over to the supply sergeant. I refused to sign, because the person with all the ammo and the person with all the guns are supposed to be different people. Next she tried to sign the arms room over to the PSYOPs company commander. I refused to sign because that commander had become a friend of mine, so I knew he was required to leave the base weekly for security briefings. Finally she tried to sign the arms room over to our company's supply lieutenant. I tried to explain that the lieutenant didn't have high enough security clearance, but she cut me off. She said she was tired of my excuses. Then she ordered me to sign, and threatened me with an Article 15. I wrote under duress on the paperwork. She didn't even look at the signature. So I sent an email to the warrant officer who was in charge of logistics for the area. He was the guy who'd given me the award I mentioned earlier, so he was pissed when he found out what was going on, and went on the shitty little weekend training exercise and basically enjoyed my vacation. That sequence of events happened on a Friday afternoon. The chief didn't get my email until Monday morning. On Monday afternoon my captain was relieved of command. I eventually had to testify at her disciplinary hearing. My second favorite part of the whole experience was the supply lieutenant, who got a slap on the wrist for inadvertently obeying illegal orders because he hadn't learned the regulations before signing, saying, "Is it like that for you all the time? This has to change." My favorite part was the full bird colonel in charge of the hearing asking my former commander, "Your soldier was awarded for being the best at his job in the entire army. After he refused your orders the first few times, why didn't you start asking questions?" Edit. Some clarity about a bunch of questions I've been getting. This was at Camp Hialeah. It doesn't exist anymore, but you can look it up to see all the different units that were there. They all used the same arms room, and yes, that's weird and it sucked. I had a TS clearance. It was explained to me that knowing the weapons logistics of the whole post was a big deal. I had the training and deployment schedules of 24 units, including foreign militaries, other branches, and an SF group. That's a lot of important information, and it was definitely above my pay grade. I absolutely should not have been the person doing that job, but I was. I knew I needed to cover my ass, which is why I was so careful about record keeping. There were probably more than 4 people with TS clearance on the base. I only knew of 4. Unsurprisingly, none of them wanted to do my job and had the clout to say no when asked. I didn't actually go to any fancy security briefings. I was mistakenly called twice, and promptly told to leave. I think the person scheduling the briefings just sent a shotgun email to everyone who had a TS clearance. After the second time I stopped getting them, so someone must have sorted it out. At the disciplinary hearing, I was called to answer questions. I showed up, answered, and was dismissed. It was a long drive to another base for 30 minutes of standing and talking. I don't know anything about the results. The captain didn't come back. That's all I know. The award I won is called an ARCOM. It's not uncommon. I wasn't some kind of indispensable prodigy. I was just in a job above my pay grade and scared of fucking up, so I took very meticulous records. Because I was the only one doing anything, I had to really know the system. So I got an award for being good at passing an audit. I'd like to thank the people who introduced me to Zach Hazard. I've been binging his stuff on YouTube since last night. It's hilarious and vindicating. And yes, I know it's psyops. That was me having a moment of stupid, and I'm not going to fix it because the jokes in the comments are pretty funny. No phones allowed at work, tell them to call me directly, by userashtit. I work in healthcare where phones are not to be used while on the floor caring for patients etc., for privacy/WHS reasons, which is fine and understandable. Most of us have our phones on us or in the break room, and don't use them unless on break or away from patient care areas. None of us check our phones while busy, and if they do, we'll always get called out for it by other staff. We were all recently in a meeting where we were told we are no longer allowed to have our phones on us, as it is a distraction and against policy, meaning not to be used unless we are out of the unit or off hospital grounds. A few people piped up and said they had young kids in care where their phone was the direct communication for the carers, or there are issues at home that they needed to have their phone to have quick contact if needed, even if it was left in their handbag and could be checked on breaks. Not only that, but we have a half-hour unpaid lunch break where we should be able to use our phones as we see fit, but this was also denied as it's still in a healthcare setting and could cause WHS issues. Now I know working in healthcare and personal mobile phones don't mix as it really is against policy, however the issue with denying us complete access was a total overreaction. The issues with requiring quick and direct contact with home or other outside work contacts was brushed off, and we were told if the issues were that bad at home, we shouldn't be at work. Many people were a bit taken aback by this, saying a lot of the home issues are resolved by a quick text back, and not allowing us access to our phones while at work was a bit unreasonable. Our manager said if that is the case, we can give people her direct work number and for contact to go through her, and she will relay the message to us or give the phone to us to talk to whoever is calling. So, cue malicious compliance. We all gave our at-home/spouses/carers/schools/etc. the direct work line to call for any reason if they are unable to get in contact with us directly, and the phone started ringing continuously. First was a lady whose husband needed approval for a big financial decision at home. The next was a vet calling to tell a coworker their dog needed to be put down. I got a call from my children's daycare saying my son had been bitten and was bleeding, mandatory reporting policy. There were several other phone calls within the span of a few hours with my manager running to find us to relay messages or pull us off the floor so we could speak to the callers, wasting more time than if we were allowed to shoot through a quick text or take a quick phone call while on our breaks. The next day we were told we can have access to our phones while on break and to please tell our home contacts to stop calling the manager's phone. It took a few days for everyone to get the message, meaning there were still many unnecessary calls coming through, but it made it obvious that the need for communication lines to be open at home was important. Want strict work hours? Okay, can do, by user Jake_Gnomestake. I used to work in a mid-sized company in the engineering department. One of the managers started to get upset because if he walked around at exactly 8:30, our start time, everyone was not in their seats. He felt that engineers were being too lax with their time. The edict went out that all engineers had to be in their seats exactly at start time. I told my boss that I was not planning on complying because I was a salaried professional and expected to be treated as such, and that if they didn't trust me to put in an honest week's work then they should fire me instead of micromanage me. The older, and much wiser, engineers took a different approach. They all showed up 5 minutes early to make sure they were in their seats at 8:30, but also set an alarm for 5 p.m. and would literally drop everything they were doing exactly at 5 p.m. and leave the building. Is the manager having a meeting that was supposed to end at 5 but is running a little late? No, at 5 p.m. a series of alarms would go off and everyone would stand up in the middle of the meeting to leave. Does operations need technical support at 4:55? They have exactly 5 minutes on the phone with the engineer before he will have to get off the phone. Is someone trying to discuss a work-related issue at 8:28? Better wait a couple minutes because no one in the engineering department is answering work-related questions for another 2 minutes. Needless to say, the policy didn't last very long. Lazy group member wants us to do his part? Sure thing, by user ToasterMups. I just finished a big group project worth about 30% of our total grade. The groups were selected for us so I didn't know anyone beforehand. So like any other group there's always a slacker who just piggybacks off of everyone else's work. This project spanned the entire length of the term and this slacker just did the absolute bare minimum or nothing at all for each of our deliverables. So here comes the end of the term and we have to submit our final report, which had to include a video demo of our app, and this made up a significant portion of the marks. Of course the slacker puts it off till the last possible min to tell us he's not home and will be busy the day of submission. Our group was planning to record the last day cause the rest of the project had to be finished to demo it. So obviously I'm pissed cause this dude is just being a huge pain, but I tell him it's all good man, we'll just cover your part in the demo. He happily agrees as he won't have to do shit once again. Here's the kicker, in the requirements of the demo every member has to be in the recording or you won't get any marks for that portion. Clearly this guy didn't read the rubric and so he thinks he's getting a good deal. If you didn't participate in the demo you get a 0 for that portion. Bet this guy is gonna be confused why his marks are so much lower than the rest of us.